Welcome to Draft Week, San Francisco 49ers fans. That can only mean one thing. It is time for Eric Crocker's final mock draft for 2025. Croc Mock, how does he see it going on Thursday, Friday, Saturday on today's Locked On 49ers?
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks everybody for making this your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Love our everydayers. Appreciate you stopping in and hanging out with us through this process of the NFL draft. It is almost here. Only 2 more shows before the real thing. And then, of course, we'll be breaking down every prospect, everything that happens throughout the NFL draft. And can't wait for that. If you're new to the program, please subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Hang out with us as we break it all down, get you ready for training camp in the 2025 season, and hopefully, who knows, maybe a Super Bowl ring to come here. And we've got you covered every step of the way. You're going to want to say, hey, man, I was with you guys for 8 years before we finally won the Super Bowl. So, Croc, with all that said, it's draft week. We did one mock draft with you. It was kind of a live mock draft, but you weren't like putting your stamp on things. This is really it. We've gone through this process. We know who the prospects are. Let's talk draft strategy. Let's talk Croc's final mock draft. First of all, Niners picking at 11. What's the what's the draft strategy at 11 for you for the San Francisco 49ers before we get into your picks?
I think the tough thing with picking at 11 is it's like, who's the guy, right? Like in some drafts, you get to 11 and it's like, wow, how is this guy here? I would love to take him. And in the mock draft that we did earlier, like I'm definitely not one of those guys that do like 5, 10 mock drafts. We did one live where we kind of had some of the influence from our listeners and viewers. And then I did this one. And that's kind of it. And, I do these drafts where, kind of collect a lot of data or analysis on some of these players, what they are, what they aren't. And then you just try to think of how they can help the 49ers, and looking at the 49ers depth chart, where I think more than maybe any other year outside of 2017, there are just these big, massive holes where you got to figure out how to get guys in here that can be starters and contribute in areas where it's going to really kind of help and protect the 49ers for years to come. So I didn't know, or at least in the mock that I did, I didn't see that guy right there at 11 where it's like, oh, you 100% have to take him, like if it was Graham. I think we've both had conversations about Graham from Michigan, the defensive tackle. If he's there at 11, I'm taking him. There's no need to even try to trade back. I think in a realistic scenario for the 49ers, is there anyone worth trading up for teams for the 49ers to be able to move back? In this scenario, there was. Hopefully for the 49ers, maybe there's Shedeur Sanders there, right? Pick 11, and there's a team that's like, look, okay, we thought he may go 9. We thought he may go 10 to New Orleans Saints. I think they're around pick 10. Man, he didn't go there. Let's trade up with the 49ers. We saw that with the Minnesota Vikings and Chicago Bears a couple years ago when Justin Fields was drafted, where they trade up to pick 11 and move back to pick 20. So hopefully there's a scenario like that in real life, but it definitely was in this mock draft that I put together.
Yeah, and I agree. Very likely when we're doing mock drafts here, it's really easy to be like, oh, here's the player I really like for the 49ers. Let's put him at 11 because that's easy, right? I don't think it's going to be that easy. I don't think there's going to be a run the card player for you there at pick 11. And is that player there that you want to actually move up for if you're the 49ers? And right now, I'd probably lean to the Niners moving up later in the draft rather than from pick 11. You need to see how the board falls. But how did the board fall for you? What did it look like for you with the San Francisco 49ers with the first pick in your mock draft?
So with the first pick, it just wasn't that guy that and it wasn't so much that there wasn't a guy I would take at 11, but there were several guys that I did like and felt like even if I am able to move back, they'll be available. And shout out to the mock draft that I used, because it allows you to kind of see what teams are offering. They can go back and look at the board and say, okay, see this guy. Okay, I can bank on hopefully this guy or this guy being there. You have a few guys in mind that you really like that feel like they could help you. So that was what I did in the Denver Broncos came calling. They said, hey, we want T-Mac. We want Ted McMillan. I said, awesome. There's guys that I like around pick 20. So I was able to trade from pick 11 and to pick 20 while also getting a second round pick, which I thought for where the 49ers are, really trying to get guys on this team that could help them right now and be starters, like guys that you're projecting to be starters, not just guys that you're hoping to be a starter, or maybe down the line if they become a starter, cool. If not, whatever. Like, no, we need guys that can come in and play right now. So I felt like that trade was definitely something that I was open to and had to do it.
So with the 20th pick, then after moving down, which, man, that would be an awesome scenario for the San Francisco 49ers. You know, they will be listening to offers. You're going to get a player probably with a very similar grade. First, I'm going to ask you who you took and who you might have taken at 11 if they weren't there. But who did you take for the San Francisco 49ers after moving down to pick 20?
Oh, I took Derek Harmon, defensive tackle out of Oregon. And we've gone over this 49ers depth chart. We've looked at the defensive linemen that the 49ers have right now. I mean, you're talking about Kevin Givens. And I like Kevin Givens as kind of a rotation guy. Maybe, guy gets tired, he's filling in. I think he does a really good job at that, not as a projected starter. Like, that's not what I'm looking for. But Derek Harmon, man, he's a big guy. He moves well, gets off the ball well. He's a guy that definitely can help the 49ers in the middle and become an immediate starter and impact player for the 49ers. So he was not a guy that was on a 30 visit, but he was a guy that I felt fit kind of one of the big needs of the 49ers.
And I'm going to put it, we got it ready. I'm going to put it on the screen later for everyone to see once we're done here breaking down this mock draft. I don't want to ruin the picks yet for the folks watching on YouTube as we go through this. Okay, so Derek Harmon out of Oregon, and the 49ers didn't bring him in on a 30 visit, but the 49ers did take everybody to Oregon for the pro day. And if I'm not mistaken, it's one of the few, if not the only pro day where John Lynch went too. Like, everybody went. John Lynch, director of scouting, all the scouts, like, it was the biggest group of scouts and personnel folks that went to Oregon for that pro day. And there's a number of Oregon prospects that the 49ers could be interested in. So, maybe they didn't have to bring a lot of guys in on the 30 visits. At 11, would Harmon have still been the pick for you when you were there? Or was there a different player that you might have taken even if the grades were somewhat similar?
It was tough because I just had similar grades on everyone, and that was what made it to where I could move back. Like, if I just had someone so much higher that, I have to take them at 11, I would have stayed pat right there and took them. But I saw Harmon. I saw Michael Williams, a guy who I really like his ability, a little raw as a pass rusher right now, but has a ton of ability. Upside, comes in right now as a stout edge setter with a guy that can definitely develop into a better pass rush, but still give you some value. He's a guy that I really like. If I was forced to pick a guy at that spot, I maybe would have went in that direction. We've talked ad nauseum about the kid from Ole Miss, the defensive tackle.
Walter Nolan.
Walter Nolan, he was available at that spot, and I like him. So there were definitely guys that I would have taken if I was forced into taking them. But how much difference was my grade on those guys as opposed to who I took? And I would say they were pretty much even. I just thought at tackle with Harmon and his athletic ability and what he brings, I felt like that guy would be harder to get. Excuse me. I'm giving away one of my picks. I liked him. There we go. Okay.
That's all right. So you got Derek Harmon out of Oregon, defensive tackle. And look, he'll be a player that's probably in consideration for the 49ers at pick number 11. So that's why the 49ers would be completely willing, I think, to move down if a team comes calling. But, I mean, you stick at Oregon, right? For the next prospect, not only did the 49ers go to Oregon Pro Day, they actually brought in Josh Connerly, the Oregon offensive tackle, in for a 30 visit as well. So they have a ton of interest and have done a ton of work on Josh Connerly, who you have to the 49ers at pick number 43. So talk to me there. Clearly emphasis on the trenches for you in this mock draft, Croc.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's one of the biggest things, right? And you're about to pay Brock Purdy a lot of money. You have to protect Brock Purdy. And I felt like Connerly is a guy who could, play inside. We've talked a lot about different guys who can do that, right? Play inside, slide outside at tackle. I think he checks all the boxes from an athletic standpoint for the 49ers. And, looking at him, getting better in the trenches here. You go big in the middle on the defensive side of the ball. And then you also go big on the offensive side of the ball with back-to-back picks. It's probably not the sexiest thing for a lot of people. There was a linebacker that was in play, the kid out of UCLA, at this spot for me. And I was like, you know what? I just value the offensive tackle position a little bit more than that linebacker spot. So Derek Harmon, Josh Connolly, both from Oregon, both guys from the trenches. Once I made the pick, I was excited about what that potentially would have the 49ers look like. And a guy like Ben Barch, go ahead, be a swing tackle or guard, be a backup. Connolly, you come in right now, you can start at guard. And in a year or so, we'll see, do the 49ers extend McKivitz, or does Trent Williams eventually kind of step away? Until one of those things happen, at least you have another guard. So you got Dominique Pooney, you got a left guard. I liked where I sat after those two picks.
Yeah, with the positional value, you just have to take the offensive tackle over the linebacker because it's just so much harder to find that position. The Niners have proven they can find linebackers later. Got a suspicion you're going to have a linebacker to the 49ers later in this mock draft. Derek Harmon, Josh Connolly going back-to-back big men from the University of Oregon. Next, the rest of Eric Crocker's final mock draft for the 49ers coming up. This episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Gametime. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena. And with Gametime, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Gametime makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer. And their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. If you're a person, and I know you are if you're listening to this podcast, that loves to go to sporting events, you go to concerts, you want to go to see comedy shows, any kind of theater events near you, you can find all of those tickets. You got to have Gametime in your pocket ready to go before you buy any tickets to those types of events. Phenomenal last-minute deals. All-in pricing means no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay, and you get views from your seat every single time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, here we go, Croc. 2 down, a lot of picks to go. You got that extra second-round pick from moving down. Found money here for the San Francisco 49ers, hitting 2 big needs with 2 big-time prospects, Derek Harmon and Josh Connolly, defensive tackle, offensive tackle. What do you do at pick 51, the extra draft pick from the trade down?
Oh, well, I stay right there in the trenches, and I go Jared Wilson, center out of Georgia. And, center isn't a position that you see the 49ers really draft high. Again, this is just kind of if I were John Lynch and the way the board is falling. Because now, if that UCLA linebacker was here right now, I would have taken him. He got picked a few picks before my next pick. So I said, okay, can't go linebacker. Yeah, I got sniped. Can't go linebacker. But where can I improve? And I'm looking at where I value guys, where I value what the 49ers needs are. And again, I wasn't trying to draft for needs. I was trying to draft who are the best guys, but who can come in right now and really help and contribute. And I settled in on Wilson. All right. So Jared Wilson, offensive center. And here's what some people are saying about him. All right. He's a neutral center who will play in the NFL for a long time. This guy says, I'm planting my flag here before the combine. He said he's a very high level athlete for a guy who's 6'3", over 310 pounds with a strong anchor on the interior, legit day 2 prospect. Another guy says he's going to be a potential starter in the NFL for a long time. They see him as more of a, kind of mid to late or early second, mid second round pick to early third round pick. So with the 49ers not having another pick for a little minute, I said, you know what? Let's take this guy here. And even if he doesn't come in and is an immediate starter, I see him eventually understanding what Kyle wants, has the athleticism, get out on the move, smart enough, played at Georgia. They do, a lot of things in the trenches and being strong and stout that the 49ers are looking for. I felt like this was a guy who potentially could come in and start, but definitely a guy who eventually will start. And if he doesn't start right away, another guy that has kind of some positional versatility, can play inside or outside.
Yeah, and not
inside or outside, inside center or at one of the guard spots.
Yeah, center or guard. He could come in and play early. Maybe Connerly's a swing tackle, and you play Wilson at guard if you like him better on the interior. And Kyle Shanahan hasn't put rookies out there at center, and so you might need a season playing somewhere else or just hanging out and learning before you make the calls and be a center in Kyle Shanahan's offense. But man, Jared Wilson is prototype Kyle Shanahan zone blocking offensive lineman in a center because of his athletic prototype. By the way, having a 6'3" center might be really good for a shorter quarterback in Brock Purdy instead of like a 6'5", 6'6" center as well. So 6'3".
Did you hear about Brock Purdy talking about his inability to see the field at times?
Yeah, like half the time you just can't see it. You got to trust it. It's pretty wild. He wasn't really saying just because of him. He's just like, that's what it's like playing quarterback in the NFL. And that's his superpower, is that that ability to anticipate throws. But Jared Wilson, 6'3", 310 pounds, big hands. You want big hands for someone who's going to handle the football, right? Fastest offensive lineman, not just center, but fastest offensive lineman at the combine. 4.8 for a 40-yard dash. And I say this all the time. I think athletic testing for offensive linemen is way more telling than even athletic testing for, say, wide receivers and cornerbacks. And so give me the guys with the best 40 times and short shuttles as far as athletes at offensive line. And that's what Jared Wilson is. He's a little bit short of that magic 4.47 short shuttle time, but he did have, I think, the third fastest short shuttle time at the combine as well, with 4.56 short shuttle. So just a prototype when you talk about a center, getting out and being able to move around. Big time program at Georgia. Perfect fit for center for the San Francisco 49ers. If they decide to go center and they never draft the center of the future, I think a lot of 49ers fans would like this guy to replace Jake Brendel at some point soon in the 49ers lineup.
And real quick, you just talked about some of his numbers. Remember the one of the reviews on him that I just read was talking about his athleticism before the combine. He's like, look, this guy's going to blow it away. So that means that his athleticism is showing up on film. It's not just a guy who went to, one of these sports training facilities, learned how to run a 40, and then all of a sudden people are like, oh, wow, look at this. No, this guy's athleticism shows up on film, and was why they were very confident that he would test extremely well before anybody else, were able to see some of his numbers. So those are some of the things about him that excited me about what he could become for the 49ers.
3 for 3 in the trenches in Croc Mock. Where did you go at pick 75, third round selection for the 49ers?
This may seem like trenches overkill, but just a lot of this is where the board fell. Remember, I wanted linebacker in that second round, and there was one that I really liked. But guys get picked. You start looking at just the way your board is and certain guys that you like. So I went back to the trenches. Defensive tackle Omar Norman Lott. That's a guy that visited the 49ers. We talked a lot about him. We talked about what he is right now. I mean, I think for me is more of a nose than like a 3 tech, but the 49ers need that stout guy in the middle. So, I mean, you look at what I did with the first pick with Derek Harmon. I mean, that's a big guy in the middle. And then I come back in the third round and go Omar Norman Lott. I don't know if the 49ers can draft enough guys in the trenches, because just for you guys listening right now who think it may be overkill going in the trenches, here's your starting defensive line: Nick Bosa, Jordan Elliott, Kevin Givens, Yetur Gross-Matos. And there's not a whole lot behind that. So getting these guys early in this draft, to me, was paramount to get starters. Like, I think the 49ers legit could wind up with 6 new starters on defense. And you would like to get a few of those from the draft if possible. So this is a guy who, even if he's not a day one starter, he's a rotation guy with someone that may be a little more experienced like Elliott, but eventually you hope he grows into, hey, the next year, boom, you're the guy. The next year, or both years, Harmon, you're the guy, right? Like, so I wanted to make sure that I fixed the trenches really on both sides. And it was obviously a thought of mine, but the way the board fell, it was just, well, this is what you have to do. Instead of forcing something else, we're like, well, draft a corner because they keep mocking corners to Niners, or draft a linebacker, any linebacker at this point. And I liked Knight, the linebacker that we watched, but I just felt like that defensive tackle is a little bit more paramount for us to go that route.
Sacramento's own Omar Norman Lott as well. And some people have him mocked in the second round, but I think late day two is more of an accurate representation of who he is, just because I think he is more of a rotational guy because of his size profile in the NFL. And this defensive tackle class is just so deep. And that's why you're going to be able to find a guy, whether you've already drafted one or not, go get another defensive tackle, in round 3. So I like that. I think it's a good spot for Omar Norman Lott, who I think at least at the beginning is probably going to be more of a rotational guy for an NFL defense. But the tape is good. But he only played like 1,000 snaps and hardly started. I think he started 4 games in his 5-year college career, Arizona State and Tennessee combined. So that's why I think he will fall a little bit and maybe even become a value pick despite some of his pass rush tape, which looks really fun. And I think it'd be a nice fit and didn't really work out all that great either. So yeah, a slipper, I think, is Omar Norman-Lott out of the second round and into an area where the 49ers could draft him in round 3. All right, let's talk. Oh, yeah. The last pick here in round 3, pick number 100, Croc, before we move on to the day 3 picks next. Who did you go with at 100?
At pick 100, I went with the guy that's definitely very familiar with both of us. We just recently talked about this guy, but Jacob Parrish, cornerback, who Parrish visited the 49ers, right? 30 visit with them?
I forgot now. No 30 visit with Jacob Parrish. They met with him at
other 2 guys.
Combine or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. It was the other 2 corners. But Jacob Parrish, cornerback out of Kansas State, he checks the boxes as far as athleticism goes. Now, he's not the tallest guy, but would you watch him on film? I thought he was like, 6 foot 205, definitely shorter than that, 5'10. But he wasn't a guy that I wanted to peg by saying, I'm just going to peg you in the slot. Like you have to be a nickel. I think he has the ability. He showed that on film, but why not be an outside guy? The 49ers kind of looking for a guy. And for me, he was physical. He was aggressive. He could run vertically with guys. We kind of question what exactly is that lateral movement ability that he has. But with the 49ers, kind of where they are is with the cornerback depth chart. I think that's a great spot to go corner. Well, where it's like, hey, if he can be an outside corner and potentially be a starting corner for you, or not starting, but like your starter corner on the outside in nickel situations, that's ideal. Or maybe you really like Deommodore Lenoir outside, and that's where you see the most value with what you're paying him. And now Parrish is a guy that plays in the nickel. You don't see a lot of rookies come in and just excel at the nickel spot. But again, him being that outside guy, and we kind of compare him to another Kansas State cornerback with DJ Reed, who 49ers like, oh, man, you play very well on the outside, Kansas State, but, man, we're going to just draft you and play you at nickel and safety. And it didn't quite work out. We've seen how his career has gone for him on the outside, for the Seattle Seahawks, for the New York Jets, and then now Detroit Lions getting paid big money for him. So this is a guy who I think, even though he kind of looks on paper like he should play nickel, I think this is an outside cornerback.
Jacob Parrish, cornerback out of Kansas State. You knew Croc was going to throw a corner in there. It wasn't going to be all linemen in this mock draft. Let's get into day 3 next, the rest of Croc's final mock draft for 2025. This episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles, including play with all these players we're talking about on EA Sports, College Football 25, Call of Duty, Avowed, so many more. As easily as you stream your favorite TV shows, it's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. And we're talking about the latest technology for elevated playing as well. Wi-Fi 6, auto low latency mode, advanced technology. Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smoother, more responsive gameplay, and endless entertainment. Over 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from all your favorite services. So head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and Fire TV Cube. That's Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On. All right, Croc, let's get into day 3 of the final Croc mock for the 2025 NFL Draft. And you stayed in the secondary here at 113 early in round 4. Talk to me about Jalen Reed out of Penn State.
Oh, man, Jalen Reed out of Penn State. This guy is a missile. I mean, he flies around. He tested well, ran in the 4.4s at the safety position, and has some size on him as well. He's listed as 6 feet tall, over 210 pounds, so 211 pounds. He's flying around. He's throwing his body around. He's hitting guys. He's coming up in run support. He is very instinctual at the second level. He's able to make plays on the ball where it's like, man, where'd this guy come from? He's not jarring guys, knocking the ball loose. I think he's a, late third, maybe early fourth round pick because the same thing that make you love him with his aggressiveness can kind of bite you in the butt a little bit as well. So he kind of has to lock in a little bit more from that standpoint and just be a little bit more disciplined in coverage so he doesn't have as much as the ups and downs. But you're going to see a lot of those kind of guys at this spot. But his athleticism, his feel for the game, his physicality, I think is something that will really jump out to the 49ers. Those are all reasons that when I was watching this film, it really jumped out. And the 49ers don't have that guy. They've had kind of safer guys, not a boomer bust type player, tested well enough. But just think about a bigger version of Malik Mustafa. And that's kind of what Reed is. But you're not going to look at him as just this box safety. He's a guy that's single high. He's flying around. He's covering ground extremely well. So this was a guy, once I kind of looked into him and what he was, I said, oh, this is a no-brainer, especially at this spot in the draft.
So really doing some work in the secondary, following 4 in a row in the trenches, 2 offensive linemen, 2 defensive linemen to start your mock draft. And now Kyle Shanahan, he's going to do it at least once or twice in this draft, get some toys to play with. You're going with the running back here to end round 4. And as a deep running back class, they're going to draft a running back. They have a need there for a backup running back to compete with Isaac Guerendo for some touches and going with some more speed, just like Guerendo last year here with RJ Harvey out of the University of Central Florida. He's not tall, 5'8", but he is fast, and he's got some size to him at 205 pounds. So 5'8", 205, ran 4.4 flat, and you can see that speed on tape, Croc.
Well, the 49ers love those type of players. And as we see last year with the injuries the 49ers had to the running back position, whether it's Christian McCaffrey, Isaac Guerendo, even Jordan Mason, like all those guys got hurt and had to miss, either a short term or a significant amount of time to where they were running the ball with Patrick Taylor at the end of the season. So drafting a guy here at this spot is kind of a little bit of a luxury, but a guy that kind of fits what the 49ers are. He's a home run threat when he touches the ball. And I felt like, man, his ability to kind of see it, that one cut runner, get vertical right now, has a speed. I really love the value of picking a running back at this spot, as opposed to maybe some of the other guys that are going to go much higher, maybe second round kid from North Carolina and some of those guys.
Yeah, and a deep running back class means it's going to push somebody down that might not be there in the 4th, 5th, 6th round that might be there in usual years. And look, add another undrafted free agent, add another one in the 7th round too. Day 3, collect running backs and make sure you've got coverage for the attrition that happens at that position. So getting into round 5 here, staying on the offensive side of the ball, where'd you go?
Isaac Tesla, receiver out of Arkansas. And this is a big kid. We're talking about, 6'4", over 200 pounds, has a big frame, tested very well, ran in the low 4.4s. His short shuttle was really good. We know the 49ers look at that, the 3-cone, those things all checked out. Not the most productive guy. And when you watch the Arkansas film, he kind of can get lost in the shuffle a little bit. And I think a lot of people went back and watched a lot of his film based on his combine and what he did there. But this isn't, he worked out of the slot, more of kind of a big slot guy that has legit ability. I'm kind of looking down the line a little bit. And he's a white guy. We know Kyle. He's not going to go a full draft without getting one of his white guy skilled players. All right. So he kind of fits the narrative from that perspective, but he has a lot of ability. He has size. And you're looking at, down the line, again, Juwan Jennings. Are the 49ers going to extend Juwan Jennings? He's entering, I believe, the last year of his contract, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he signed a 2-year extension as a exclusive rights free agent last year, I think. So, yeah, I think he is entering the last year of his deal.
Right. So you look at that, and is this a guy? Can they see something in him from this year? And again, we're talking about what pick is this? Pick 147. All right. So we're late, kind of in the process here. At this point, there's no guarantees that this guy even makes the roster, but he has ability, and we could see a fit. And can he do some of the things that we see from Juwan Jennings? He's physical in the run blocking game. Like, you see that. One of the first clips of him that I saw when I put on the film. One of the first plays was him really going out of his way to go above and beyond to block a guy. So he's going to block. He can get physical from that standpoint. He can definitely run. He has the lateral movement ability that 49ers have. Does he have it up here? And if so, that's a guy that potentially can take over for the role of Juwan Jennings. Will he be as good as Juwan Jennings? I'm not saying that, but finding a guy that can kind of fit a role that you've already have in your offense, I thought was I was kind of lucky to find a guy that fit that at this point in the draft.
And one of the things I've noticed, the receivers the 49ers have paid a lot of interest to throughout the draft process is speed. I think speed is one of the factors, Danny Gray style. And this is kind of a Danny Gray style player. It's like, okay, I think there could be more there in the NFL. We're going to draft a guy with speed and hopefully he can help us out on offense. But unlike Danny Gray, better blocker for Isaac Tesla here. So if when I throw a wide receiver in, I don't know if it'll be Tesla, but I'm going to throw a wide receiver in my mock draft. It's going to be a guy with speed for the 49ers. So I like that. So I put it on the screen so those of you watching on YouTube can see the rest of it. Late 5th round, you went Jabbar Muhammad, corner from Oregon. Then in round 7, Kobe King, linebacker out of Penn State. And I believe you sent one of your 7th rounders to the Broncos in that trade to even things out there. Yes. And so only 2 7th rounders here. So it was Kobe King, linebacker for Penn State, doubling up on Penn State and Oregon prospects in this draft, Croc. And then Simeon Barrow, a defensive lineman out of Miami to finish it off in round 7.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, the goal was, can you find guys that you feel like can come in and really compete? And when you look at the trenches for the 49ers, it is just really depleted, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. So again, I was able to not just double up at defensive tackle, but Simeon Barrow late, kind of get him and see what he could do. He kind of checked the boxes from an athletic standpoint. But with Harmon and Norman Lott, definitely Harmon, you want him to come in. You're day one starter. Norman Lott, can you develop a role over the next year or so? Because when you look at the D-line, it looks like there's an opportunity for it. Connerly, he can come in, play guard, eventually transition to the outside. Jarrett Wilson come in after a year or so, come in, step in at that center position. If not, win the center spot outright. But, there will be a transition with that. But I felt like overall, not just adding depth to a team that was starting to be a little depleted, starting to look down the lines with paying Brock Purdy big bucks, and you're going to have to start creating depth right now for this team. So overall, again, trench heavy, especially early on, but I felt Harvey, I think he's going to be he fits the 49ers, what they do offensively.
Oh, yeah, he sees the hole and he can get it and get huge chunk yardage. So that speed running back that can fit the outside zone, absolutely with him. And I will say, and people are going to look at this and say, hey, what, no edge rushers, no defensive ends. I will say both Omar Norman Lott and Simeon Barrow, sub 300-pound guys, I could see roles where they play sort of a big end role. In fact, my comp for Omar Norman Lott when we did the deep dive was Kerry Hyder. So I could see him. And he's got kind of long arms, even though he's not the biggest guy, 6'2", 290. Maybe play a little bit of a versatile role where they can give you some base down defensive end and then rush from the inside as well. So that is a possibility.
I would have loved to get an edge rusher, but again, it's easy to just say, oh, you got to go edge. When you're seeing how the board falls, it's kind of hard, especially once you get outside that first round. I did like the kid out of Ohio State, though. 44. I don't want to butcher his name. He's kind of Polynesian kid.
JT Tuamula.
Yeah, I liked him. He had something to him, and he was a guy I thought about potentially taking, but it just would have been in the 2nd round. And I decided to go with the center position, a position I feel like the 49ers haven't really thrown a lot of resources at, especially in the draft. But ultimately, yeah, that was how I kind of came to that conclusion. But I did want to go edge. It's not, I would have liked to go edge. I would have really loved to go linebacker. I think those were 2 spots high that I wanted to go after, but just the way the board fell, I kind of prioritized another guy and kind of missed out on that opportunity.
There you go. That is Croc Mock. And let us know what you think at BD Peacock, at Crocky209. Drop a comment on YouTube. And my final mock, the Peacock final mock, will be on, I think, draft morning. That'll have to be our Thursday morning episode. We are almost there. Little mailbag show. So get us your questions as well for tomorrow's Winky Wednesday as we get ready. Almost there. The 2025 NFL draft right here. Locked On 49ers.